shifted pagoda. In my dreams, I cannot describe. In my dreams, I cannot describe.
Its YouTube scene is definitely creatively lacking. I mean, duh, that should be obvious to anyone at this point. A game that's been stagnating for over 6 years is going to reflect that in its community. But I mean, it gets to a point where most videos are more about checking off items on a list rather than putting the love for TF2 first. Before we get into this, as always, Stereotypes don't apply to everyone. Disclaimer, disclaimer. Don't get mad. Now let's move on to the first type of YouTuber. In this video, I got 4 of your favorite TF2 YouTubers to compete in some of the hardest challenges. It won't be easy, as every game will be a pure fight for survival. If anyone fails to complete a challenge, they will be eliminated, with the last person standing walking away with a one-of-one God Tier Unusual hat.
Hello, yes, my name is BeesTube, and ever since I was born at such a young age, all I've ever needed was enough money for the bus fare home.
Hey guys, it's me, FaZe Denton X, and I am the best sniper in Ethiopia.
Okay, now the first challenge is to land 1 meat shot on an opponent as scout. Let's begin.
Alright, step aside, noobs. Let me show you the skills of the greatest sniper in Ethiopia!
Hi boys. We're kicking things off with 1000 coins locked in on Gambling Fun TF. And I'm going all in every spin, every roll, risking it all for that one massive jackpot. We're not stopping. We're not slowing down until that huge win finally hits. Let's see if today's the day luck's finally on our side and we win big.
Charge! I will not tolerate failure on my team.
Relacionamento sem crush nem ficante.
Quem nasceu pra ser fiel?
Nunca vai ser amante.
It's time to reap.
Got him. Shot. Bro, my shot's not landing.
Loser, bro.
Shut up.
So bad, bro.
Oh my. Okay. Oh.
What was?
Come on, one shot. One more. Easy.
You got lucky.
Nuh-uh. Air shots.
Is this Europe? What is this server? Why do you have such high pings?
What the? What freaking server is this? I'm done. Why are you playing, you freaking? I've been playing Team Fortress 2 since 2007, but one of the biggest questions I've had on my mind ever since is the age-old question of which TF2 merc would be the best at driving. I mean, all of these mercenaries have to get to the battlefield somehow, and we literally see proof of this in Expiration Date as the Heavy drives the red bread van to the secret red hideout. Plus, don't even get me started on snipers driving and Meet the Team. Yeesh. I mean, distracted driving, only one hand on the wheel, the list of bad driving habits goes on and on. But anyways, we know the TF2 universe takes place in the late 1960s to early 1970s. But for simplicity's sake, let's go with 1968. During this time period, driving legislation was beginning to get much more strict, as the US federal government mandated seatbelts in all vehicles except buses. Now on Expiration Date, I'm fairly confident that this is not a bus, and that none of these guys are wearing their seatbelts. And to make it even worse, the Heavy over here is driving an obviously beaten up vehicle with no doors to prevent Scout from falling out. This is the reason why I'm going to have to say Heavy is the worst driver. He has zero regard for his passengers' safety, and if you look closely, he gets distracted by an alarm, taking his eyes off the road for a solid 3 seconds. 3 seconds may not sound like a lot, but trust me when I say when driving on the road past 30 miles per hour, just a few distracted glances means you've traveled entire feet without looking. But before we move on to the other mercenaries, I would like to first talk about today's sponsor, Raid Shadow Legends.
This video is actually sponsored by 24twerkers.uk, and if you have a problem with that, you can go cry in your little pyro baby bed. Let me tell you, you can watch these TF2 junk food type videos, but that's all it will ever be. It'll be watched and it would be forgotten. These videos adhere to the YouTube meta, getting every view across the entire website as many people as they can. When you monetize your videos like a Mr. Beast videos, you don't get actual TF2 players watching your videos. You get gay band kids from Colorado. Those are the people watching your videos. It's giving you fake and inflated influence on the TF2 community, but at least it's enough for you to go to another lousy challenge video. Where is the fighting spirit that keeps this game alive? Where is the creativity that has inspired so many great artists from this game? I do not see it in your bloody videos. I look for them. Oh. One day, you might get passion to actually do something for this game. You'll get the fighting spirit, and when you make the call, you're not gonna have the abused and tired soldiers of TF2 at your door. You're gonna get those band kids instead. And trust me when I say this, having kids at your door is not a good look. You would rather have a sexy TF2 player like me.
If I were to ask you what the best horror experience in TF2 is, many of you would likely point to some of the newer attempts of making the game scary, such as all the spooky SFMs, creepypastas, and even fully fledged fan games. But none of those can even hold a candle to arguably one of the most immersive horror experiences you can have in TF2. That's right, I'm talking about Slender Fortress, and unlike most scary content for TF2, Slender has existed in the community since the early dawn of the game, competing with the likes of Times 100 Orange and Ping spoofing Skyle servers. Seeing how in recent years Slender Fortress's original concept has been lost in translation through flashy pop culture references and gooners, you might not know what Slender Fortress even is. So let's take a few steps back and start from the beginning. Slender Fortress was created in July 2012 by Kit O'Rifty as a source mod plugin for TF2. At this point in time, Slender clones were popping up left, right, and center. The question developers for Slender Fortress were faced with was, how do you shove the concept of a single-player, slow-paced horror game into something which, relatively speaking, is the complete opposite of that? Also, even if you did somehow manage to pull it off, wouldn't it just feel like a budget-bin version of Slender? We can answer this question ourselves just by looking at the gameplay for the game mode. The basic objective of Slender Fortress is to navigate around the map as a team and collect a certain amount of items to unlock an escape, all the while being pursued by a boss, an NPC who'll just roam around the map and start chasing you if you're so to even breathe within their presence. I know what you guys are thinking. It doesn't sound like much, but trust me when I say there is actual strategy and resource management which are crucial parts of the experience that make it all the more rewarding to play. For starters, you have a flashlight, because this is a horror game after all, and every horror game needs to have one. But be careful, because if you use it too much, the battery will die, and you'll be left in the dark. For some maps, this is not a problem, because they are pretty well illuminated, but for the ones that are completely pitch black in a dingy building, good luck trying to see. However, you are equipped with Ultra Vision, a slight blue glow which illuminates the area around you, helping you at least be able to see what's in front of you. The maps in Slender are generally dark and decrepit, like your bedroom, but a good Slender map will have very few light sources and a maze-like layout to complement the horror atmosphere. Most maps see you collecting pages to unlock the exit, but there are some variations, like collecting documents, gas cans, keys, or God forbid, having to survive for 5 minutes. And while we're on the topic of collecting pages, it wouldn't be Slender Fortress without mentioning the man of the hour, Slender Man himself. Slender was the primary boss during the game mode's early days, and his appearance was much less intimidating than later iterations, if you know what I mean. His AI is composed of a handful of states, being idle, searching, chasing, and most importantly, the why do you even play this game state. Slender also of course produces static, while in close vicinity to a player. Getting caught by Slender Man isn't the only way to lose. Exposure to static is too, whether you're looking at him or not. With its unique blend of arcadey multiplayer horror, gloomy maps, and a fully functional Slender Man, Slender Fortress earned early notoriety as a fun alternative horror game mode, which had never been seen before in TF2. Compared to nowadays, the idea of TF2 having a horror element to it, being scary, is pretty overdone and predictable even.
I'm British, by the way.
At this point, The whole game mode revolved around Slender Man, but if it stayed that way, it would have died alongside Slender as new horror sensations would take its place. Remember how Slender Man's AI worked? To elaborate a little more, his AI is controlled by a CFG, or a config file, in which values and attributes are specified, such as Slender's move speed, idle lifetime, static intensity, etc. So if you wanted a new type of boss, you just simply tweak the config file, and that's exactly the direction the game mode started heading. The year is 2013, and there's a small amount of Slender servers up right now, as access to hosting the game mode is gatekept. The most notable server being New Lunar Republic, who likely hosted the first full-time Slender Fortress server, and eventually new bosses would start trickling in. SCP-173, or otherwise known as the peanut that snaps your neck, was one of the first ones to be made. It produces low static, but moves at lightning speed when you're not looking at it. The Slender plugin even received a completely new teleport type for this boss, and the blinking system, allowing it to move just a little, even with a direct line of sight. The community refers to this kind of boss as a statue boss. Kate the Chaser, and yeah, I'll be honest, I had no idea who this person was before, doesn't slowly pursue her targets, nor is affected by vision, but instead chases whoever she can see, forcing the player into a mad dash away from her. If you happen to run out of stamina, or back yourself into a corner,
You be f***ing dead.
this kind of boss is a chaser, and is really just a faster version of Slender Man's config file with a reduced static buildup. To quickly note, Slender the Arrival would release around this time to mixed reception. It's where Kate the Chaser originally debuted from, much to players' confusion. And it's also where Slender Man's most recognizable model originates from in this game mode. In time, more and more bosses started getting in from your favorite horror medias, such as Amnesia, Cry of Fear, and even entirely original creations made just for Slender Fortress. If you've seen this next bot appear around YouTube, you'd be surprised to learn that it actually originated from this game mode. Paranoia is a charger boss, which charges at any player that remains in its line of sight for too long, guaranteeing a fast and horrifying death. Maps started getting produced alongside bosses, which culminated as large community projects or content packs. For example, The Ward is a survival map inspired by Outlast, which has players finding only one item, a key to unlock the escape. However, they have to survive for 4 minutes before the escape unlocks against Dr. Trager himself, a ridiculously dangerous chaser. Some other examples of content packs include Containment Breach, a map which takes place in Site 19 as players face various bosses from the SCP universe, Alpha Complex, which forces players to survive against Patriarch and his flesh pounds from the killing floor, and most infamously, 5 Rounds at Freddy's, a survival map taking place in Freddy Fazbear's Pizza, which pits players against the animatronics from FNAF 1. By 2014, Slender Fortress was thriving, with new and exciting content being produced, with healthy servers and active communities all working together to survive the horrors before them. Soon enough, videos of Slender Fortress made it to YouTube, which helped introduce YouTube audiences to the game mode. One of the most influential YouTubers being Ratty Rattington, formerly known as Deadly Creature. Their frequent uploads would serve to showcase bosses, maps, and servers to the broader TF2 player base. By now, you can begin to understand why this game mode became as successful and as popular as it is now. But I would be neglecting a huge part of Slender's history if I didn't talk about the people and community that carried this game mode on their backs. One of them, who you may recognize for all the wrong reasons. This is Globable, or as some of you may know them now, as a VTuber. They were a member of the Slender Fortress community and ran their own server as early as June 2014. At this time, it was simply known as Globable Servers, which I'll be abbreviating to Glob Servers, or Glubs, to prevent confusion with Globable, the VTuber. They were one of the premier communities next to New Lunar Republic, and Globable herself was responsible for creating or contributing to the creation of a lot of early Slender Fortress maps, which are still run today. Glubs would stand out by regularly creating new and exclusive content for their server and the game mode, with both high production value and attention to detail to the primary theme of the mode, that being horror. So it's no surprise that Glub servers eventually grew to become one of the most popular in Slender Fortress history. But before they were able to take off, there was some drama back in the day between Glubs and their all-time sister server, New Lunar Republic. On the 6th of August 2014, Globable would make this announcement on the Globable Steam server group, in which she details a conflict between Glub servers and New Lunar Republic, with the former delisting them as an official Slender Fortress server. The cause for this was for multiple reasons, including NLR demanding exclusive Glub's bosses, despite each community having their own pool of unique bosses, disagreements about maps, including New Lunar Republic decompiling and making unofficial edits to pre-existing maps, such as 4-Way, claiming it as their own. When Glubs proceeded to host an older, official version of 4-Way, they were accused of stealing the map, which isn't true, and general trash talking towards Globable as a person. How much of this is true is up for debate, as we've only got Globable's side of the story, and the official New Lunar Republic Steam group has all been abandoned, and the response made by NLR was on their official forums, which have since been lost to time. Despite this incident, Glubs would continue to stay online, official or not, while New Lunar Republic would eventually fade into obscurity, with their last server-related announcement being posted in July of 2015. With Glub standing their ground, it was only uphill from here, as they would go on to release tons of new content over the years, with work on the Slender Fortress plugin now being handled by Brilgamith, also known as Benoist or Kenzer. From here on, some of the highest quality Slender Fortress content started being created. 2015 saw the release of Underground, taking place in an abandoned subway. While most of Slender's maps utilize Team Fortress 2 and Half-Life 2's assets, Underground uses a great amount of custom-made content, including models, textures, and sound systems to create an entirely unique atmosphere. This map is a reflection of the deep understanding the team involved in making it had about the Source engine, which included Globable, Simply Delicious, Vince, and Dr. Face. In 2016, the classic Slender Fortress content pack was released, a compilation of various bosses and maps that existed around the time of Slender Fortress's earlier years. You were able to experience them all on Glub servers, or you could download the content yourself to host on your own Slender server. 2017 featured the Old Times update, a content pack which included a remake of another old map, Cry of Fear, alongside the release of the Old School, or Pack 14 Boss Pack, composed of primarily Source Engine horror bosses from games like Cry of Fear, They Hunger, and Afraid of Monsters. 2017 would also see the release of the Silent Hill update, a content pack themed around Silent Hill, obviously, including a wonderfully crafted map and bosses from the Silent Hill franchise. 2018 came with Candy Rewards, a new system designed to reward players for a long-time engagement with Glub servers. You would earn candy periodically simply by playing, with the potential to earn more by collecting pages and winning rounds. You could then spend your candy to control certain parts of the game mode, such as forcing specific bosses, forcing special rounds, extending the map by a certain amount of rounds, and so on. These examples are just bumps in the road when compared to the plethora of updates Glub servers pushed out. Throughout the year, you could expect balance changes to bosses, map updates, plugin improvements, and even seasonal content packs. Slender Fortress maps made under Glubs sometimes have corresponding Halloween event versions, which were released during October. You could also expect to see Christmas-themed bosses and maps around December, and even joke bosses and maps during early April. The list just goes on, and it's impossible to put into writing just how fruitful Slender Fortress was at the time. Also, all of these updates were accompanied by announcements in the Global server Steam group, and sometimes videos posted on Globable's personal channel. What you have here is passion and dedication, which generates endless hype and interest in your community with limitless room for growth. By this point, Slender Fortress has all but cemented itself in the wall of fame of community game modes, joining the ranks of others, like Verse Saxon Hail, Dodgeball, and Randomizer, making TF2 history, so to speak. The one thing about Globable is that she took Slender Fortress way too seriously, and it shows if you ask anyone who was closely involved with Slender Fortress's development. They'll tell you,
Glub squeezes our balls and the content comes out.
At this point, I was really invested in hearing about the community side of things. So I went ahead and tracked down multiple people closely associated with Slender Fortress to talk about their experiences working with Globable. Most notably, Dr. Face and really Aunt Liz. Yeah, I'm just gonna call him Vince. Alright, here we go. What was Slender Fortress and its community like back in the day?
Vince, you fucking remember, we used to go in there and there'd be like a bunch of like fem pyros surrounded by like swirling hearts and stuff like that, and people going, "Oh, how?" It was like the furry hangouts before the furry hangouts, like the anime.
Yeah, you had your like fair share of people like that in the servers, but to me what it felt like was mostly it was like really casual. It wasn't so much people surrounding the game mode. It felt more like a casual hangout with the game mode on the side. At least that's how it felt like to me.
People had to just sit there and...
What was working with Glubbable like?
God. Glub was quite a character. I mean, like, Glub did, like, a lot of the original maps from what I remember. And they were very, I'll use the word samey. Like, when Simply and... Vince, did you ever make Slender maps that went out?
I made one.
Okay.
And then I also, like, did the stuff that I usually do, like the soundscape passes on several maps.
You were helping out shit as well. Glub just had this strange aura, and I just kind of didn't really get that like involved, really. Yeah, they really do. I still look every now and again just to see if the Glub is still going on that scary channel.
What do you think about Slender Fortress now?
I haven't played it a whole lot more recently. I've been meaning to kind of look at it again from like a creation kind of point. I've seen some interesting stuff, but like in general, I don't really see much new. A friends list who added me asking me about my Slender Fortress bosses, and that person started doing their own boss models, and unfortunately they're very lacking in quality. There's just really big 2D planes on the model that just have like a white or black background. Yeah, like hair on a character. It's got like white squares.
That's basic as fuck. That's just
I don't know
parameter in the VMT alpha test.
Yeah, that's something I don't quite understand.
Okay, so what I want you guys to do is search up on YouTube Slender Fortress and sort it by the most viewed videos.
Alright. It's not going to be global, this one. Slender Fortress. Most popular?
Oh my god, okay, it shows up several times.
Well, the first thing I see is like a Five Nights at Freddy's titty. You know, that doesn't seem so different to what I saw on the Glub servers, I'm not gonna lie.
Eventually in January 2020, Glubbable would announce that she'd be stepping down from her role at Glub servers, with her position being succeeded by another long-term developer. She attributes this to her declining health and well-being. With this change of leadership, the whole structure of the community will slowly but surely change. Unfortunately, for the worst. After stepping down, Glub servers simply fell off in popularity. This started about 5 to 6 years ago, so the reasons why are still fresh in players' minds. But if you weren't there to experience it, the decline can be attributed to various factors. One of the most notorious being the amount of bad and abusive staff. While most Source Engine communities have either trolls or bad staff, Glubs had far more abusive staff than usual, getting triggered by breaking even the slightest of rules, or just falling for plain trolling and rage baiting, looking for any excuse to exercise their power. They would overly punish innocent players and waste their time with trolls, creating a toxic environment for everyone really. Questionable changes were being made to content hosted, such as various bosses and maps being taken off rotation. Most were unique in terms of design, function, and source material, demonstrating how far the game mode had come. Then, little by little content was just being removed, without any discernible reason or cause. The most official changelogs have been elaborated on as why certain content was removed, simply boiling down to them being discontinued. Digging through conversations on Glub server's Discord, it's revealed that with how many bosses they had at the time, around 200, most would be getting removed due to them not being fun or engaging to play against, or just being plain disliked by players and developers. What's still the most strange about this is that most of the bosses they removed fit the theme of the game mode quite well, while others they kept didn't. They also refer to these removed bosses as going into a vault of sorts, which is possibly an archive for all their older content. It's good that they're keeping legacy content around, but at the same time, nobody is allowed to use it but them. As time went on, documentation about which bosses and maps you could experience on Glubs, such as fandom wikis and Steam guides, stopped being updated, leading to overall confusion about what was actually being hosted. Information about the server also slowed to a crawl on their Steam group, but only because they moved to using Discord, and most unfortunately, TF2 and Slender Fortress just being past their prime, As Globable stated herself in this discussion post on her Steam group, she also attributes a lack of exposure/coverage for the game mode, contributing to Glob's server's decline in popularity. While videos about Slender Fortress were still being posted, they weren't getting far enough reach as they came from small independent channels instead of larger YouTubers. With Glubs consequently came the decline of the rest of the Slender Fortress community. Was Slender dying because of the President Glub's fall from Grace had set? Not exactly, though it can be attributed to some large developments around the time. By this point, Meet Your Match had been out for 3 to 4 years when Glubs really started to decline, but the damage wasn't just limited to Glubs. It affected all community servers. Casual de-emphasized the need to go through the community server browser to play TF2, meaning alternative and community servers like First Saxon Hail, Defron, and Slender would get less exposure and traffic because everyone was using casual matchmaking now. Even if you had no intention of playing an alternative TF2, using the browser would at least give community servers a chance to be seen. Communities reported as much of a 70% decline in player traffic after the update dropped. This was a universal blow to every community server, not just Slender. Slenderman and media had also started to decline as well. The arrival back in 2013 wasn't very well received, as more horror media began to overtake Slender in popularity. And just a year later, the infamous Slenderman stabbing incident took place in Waukesha, Wisconsin in 2014. 2 teenagers lured their friend into the woods and attempted to murder her, believing that her death would somehow please Slenderman, despite him being a fictional character. After that, nobody wanted anything to do with Slenderman, his surrounding media becoming frowned upon. Who would want to associate themselves with a character that nearly resulted in the death of an innocent girl? Oh, and also the Slenderman movie came out in 2018, which was met with a universal disappointment, and is widely regarded to be a pretty bad movie, not doing much to help or rejuvenate interest in the character. It's also worth mentioning that the last public build of Slender Fortress by Benoist was released to the public on November 17th, 2017, meaning without updates, it would slowly break as TF2 received new updates itself. Glub servers would persevere, however, as they continued to run a private build of Slender Fortress, which is still being updated to this day. As for everyone else, however, attempting to compile and run Slender Fortress for your own server just won't work. It hasn't been updated in 8 years, and nobody has tried to restore the build to a playable state. But despite all of this, with Glubs dying hard, Slenderman losing relevance, and the game mode itself breaking, Slender Fortress itself would get a second wind. The last build of Slender Fortress pushed out by Benoist would come with Windows compatibility, which is great for letting more players get involved with Slender. However, the version itself would be riddled with bugs and issues, with Benoist not being around to fix them. A few disgruntled developers would take it upon themselves to fix Slender Fortress, and ultimately keep the game mode alive. Slender Fortress Modified would first release to the public on June 12, 2020 on GitHub, created by Mentrillium, with contributions from other developers from the Slender scene, including the Gaben and Demon Hamster Eating My Waffles. Modified describes itself as an expanded version of Slender Fortress, with massive feature and stabilization improvements, primarily to prevent issues like crashing. It also describes itself as a lot easier to compile compared to previous versions of the game mode. In short, Modified is all about pushing Slender Fortress content creation to its limits. To start with, bosses now have far more features and abilities they can utilize in their config files, such as projectiles, more damage types, extended animation libraries, and so on. A lot of boss functions in the past were found in exclusive plugins made specifically for servers like Glubs, but Modified lets anyone use these free expansions. Previously, Slender maps were made with the base Hammer editor entities, but map creation for Modified is far easier with the inclusion of a brand new .fgd file. Forge game data files are text documents which define entities and logic used for games and game modes in source. The .fgd for Modified included a vast array of improvements to pre-existing entities, such as page customization options, improvements to music transitions, quality of life for global map properties, and so on. Modified also allows backwards compatibility with older generation Slender maps, meaning none will be lost to time. And best of all, Modified is open source on GitHub, meaning anyone is free to download it, look through its code, submit improvements, or even create new game modes using Modified as a base. Previously, access to Slender Fortress was very on and off. The plugin would often go through periods of being public and private, or just being limited access to certain servers and communities. With Modified, anyone is free to download it no matter when, and if you have the skills, you can get your very own Slender Fortress server set up in no time. However, what proved to be more important than players setting up public servers was players setting up private servers to create and test content. To set up a TF2 server, you need a good understanding of the source engine, source dedicated servers, and source mod, let alone an even greater understanding of Slender Fortress as a game mode. Something the modern TF2 player would be clueless about. Back in 2014, the average Joe wouldn't know how to approach content creation, if they even had access to Slender. But as time went on and documentation slowly trickled through, more and more players got to work. It can't be pinpointed to a specific date or year, but the new generation of Slender Fortress content creation would come with Modified. Instead of boss and map releases slowly trickling through large communities like Glubs, instead, a small part of the player base would produce content on their own, thanks to Modified's accessibility. Communities would primarily receive their own brand of exclusive content made in-house, but public content would still be posted and shared in the Modified GitHub page and official Discord. Slender Fortress in its current state is a shadow of its former self. I mean, sure, the gameplay is still relatively the same from how it used to be back in the day, but it just doesn't hit the same without all the themed updates and the sense of community from the Glub server days. Kind of reminds me of another game in a very similar predicament, but I just can't put my finger on it. Many Slender servers such as Glubs or Nexus Realities, which do revamp the original gameplay with better content and features, simply don't pull in a lot of players. And if you go on YouTube right now and search Slender Fortress, you'll find tons of content that either misses the mark entirely on what makes Slender Fortress good, or outright fetish content. I'm looking at you, FNAF Foxy video, with over 4.8 million views. Now, I'm not going to dunk on anyone who enjoys this type of content, but with how abundant it is on YouTube, the problem of Slender Fortress getting misrepresented arises, leading to a lot of confusion for what the game mode is meant to be. This discourages even more people from wanting to play the game mode, alongside everything else I've gone over. I'm not saying that anyone's opinions on the game mode are inherently wrong, but I feel like most people probably would have given the game mode more of a chance if they were able to see what it was like behind all the layers of slop and shitpost bosses that have encapsulated Slender Fortress in recent years. Despite Slender Fortress nowadays being negatively associated with Guna mods and being a dumping ground for any, and I mean any pop culture references, especially after Slender Modified drastically lowered the bar for entry, both for the better and worse. On one hand, this allowed for anyone to create new bosses and modifications of Slender, but on the other hand, it allowed for anyone to create new bosses and modifications of Slender. The best word to describe Slender Fortress is potential. Slender Fortress has the potential to be one of the most entertaining and well-designed community game modes right now, yet is being held back by a lack of seriousness in its presentation. For fans of the Slender Fortress game mode who want to continue seeing Slender at its best, I want you to go out of your way to find better servers and not settle for less by playing servers just because it's there or just because it has players. Anyways, as always, have a good one. For 7 years, Valve hosted an annual filmmaking contest called the Saxy Awards. If you're wondering why I said that in the past tense, that's because Valve doesn't host these community contests anymore. 2018 was the last time we heard of them, and in typical Valve fashion, they stayed completely silent regarding the cancellation of the Saxies, leaving the TF2 community wondering why. Was the reason too controversial for Valve to announce, like with the Invasion update, or was Valve just too lazy to say anything? The real answer is much more complicated, and is connected to a series of events that coincided with Valve's quiet cancellation of the Saxies. If you haven't been keeping up with all the TF2 community drama from my channel, then all of what I'm about to say won't make any sense to you. But don't worry, I'll catch you up to speed on everything you need to know about this honestly quite ridiculous incident that also, of course, has the Emporium's involvement in it. The story begins in early March of 2018, after the voting for the 7th Saxy Awards concluded, and the people who won Best Overall Animation were given their in-game rewards, along with free flights for an exclusive Valve office tour. This was something Valve would regularly do for previously winning SFMs, and the team behind the Agent Gun short film would be later invited to what should have been just another normal office tour. One thing to keep in mind for the rest of the story is that a majority of these tours were arranged by Eric Smith, as he always chose to manage community events and act as a middleman between the corporate side of Valve and the community. He was the person who ended up handling, and still does handle, the majority of the back-end work for Team Fortress 2. This includes things like cosmetic drop updates and bug fixes. Out of everyone who works at Valve, Eric is the last person you'd want to upset. Yet time and time again, Eric would always get the short end of the stick. We've seen this with the Invasion update fiasco that forced Eric to send out multiple emails to contributors with a payment method that would satisfy everyone after the project leaders for the update decided to take the lion's share of the revenue. But that's a whole other story for another day. And the reason why I've told you all this about Eric ties directly into what happened when one member from the Agent Gun team pulled off a stunt at their offices. That led to Eric getting pretty upset. But who was on the team, I hear you ask? Well, remember when I said the Emporium somehow got involved in all of this? That's because the team for the SFM animation comprised of the same cliques that hold a monopoly over the TF2 workshop, and have hundreds of combined contributions and items. I don't want to get into the nitty gritty of why a clique in the workshop is necessarily a bad thing, so if you want to know, you can check out the Emporium video. But the important thing to remember for this is that these were the people that were invited to Valve's headquarters, and one person in particular decided to do something that would ruin any possibilities of any future Saxy awards. Similar to how the Invasion update drama ruined any possibility of a community-led update for TF2. The reason why is because once anyone in the community breaks Valve's trust for any opportunity they offer to everyone else, like a community update or an official award show, that automatically kills any events for the community. In this case, when one of the members from the winning team committed a crime in their offices, that signaled to Valve that future contestants couldn't be invited to the offices because what if something else happens that would really upset them? Who knows? And just like with the community update drama, they didn't want to take any